Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do a get ready with me doing this makeup look and talking about practical magic. I really want to just delve into this movie today and really talk about how it's actually played a very important role in my life, just in general, in how I try and romanticize life a little bit and find a little bit of magic in the everyday, and basically the aesthetic to just being so aspirational and feels so much like coming home to something, really. And just in general, how I think we can use tools like movies and arts and music, whatever, to help support our sense of identity and really just engage with the world a little bit more playfully. And witchy stuff in general has definitely been a big thing for me, as many of you know from this channel. And Practical Magic is just one of those witchy movies in particular that I feel like have all the elements of what kind of draws me to this aesthetic and how it's actually made a meaningful impact in my life beyond just being a movie I like to watch. So yeah, if you're interested in watching me create this look, talk about these themes, keep on watching. If you're interested in any products I'm using at any point, just so you know, I will list everything in the description box down below because I'm mostly going to be chatting today rather than doing, a makeup tutorial. So to start, when I turned 30, which was less than a year ago, but last November, I decided I wanted to do a practical magic themed birthday, which essentially involved margaritas at my place, dancing to Stevie Nicks, and requesting that everybody, wear some long skirts, wear your hair out, and that was basically it. And just a really close group of girlfriends instead of getting a ton of people together who don't really know each other that well or don't know each other as well. And anyway, it was one of my favorite birthdays ever. It was just so much fun. I made a TikTok about it. I think I even shared it previously here after that birthday, but I had so much fun. It was just so great to be with a group of people I felt so comfortable with and just kind of make a little bit of magic out of my birthday party. Yeah, it just really felt like there was this kind of magic swirling in the air, and I felt like having that influence and that sort of scenery of midnight margaritas in the back of all of our heads kind of just made everyone really excited, made it very kind of playful. So that was sort of the beginning of me kind of actively thinking about this movie as a little bit of an inspiration for life. It's like, why not bring in my 30s in the best way I can currently think of possible, which is midnight margaritas, and not doing anything too fancy, not doing anything, with a huge group of friends and friends of friends, just keeping it simple and dancing and getting drunk, drink margaritas. So I highly recommend that to anybody who has watched and loved this movie or anyone in general. Right when midnight hit, we poured some new margaritas, put on that song by Harry Nilsson, Lime and the Coconut. Highly recommend. It was such a fun time. So I kind of wanted to use that to set this kind of base note for how I'm entering my 30s with this really kind of enthusiasm. Like I said, a bit of a playful energy and a little bit of magic. I set the table with crystals and candles, and I feel like this is a great place to say right off the bat, the aesthetic of Practical Magic, that movie, is such a vibe. And I feel like that's one of the huge reasons why people love it. It just feels like you're entering this very particular space that is what I think a lot of people would love their everyday life to look like. Their house, their clothes, their long hair, the sea. Oh my God. If I could snap my fingers and live there, of course I would. Alas, I do not have access to such a house, but I can find my own ways in my everyday to integrate some of that aesthetic into my everyday. There's something about aesthetics in general that can be this reflection of personal style I find interesting. Some people might think of it as being too obsessed with the visual, too obsessed with branding. I find aesthetics can be really about personal expression and kind of like a place of style, comfort, feeling one's best self. So it really comes down to what you're surrounding yourself with visually, whether it's just on your social media or in your everyday space, what is your kind of aesthetic influences how you feel. And when you find your aesthetic and find things that kind of make you feel like you're coming home or feeling inspired, like those are the ways I find things as simple as makeup, fashion, home decor can actually be quite influential in your life. It's sort of like you surround yourself with things that make you feel good. And the aesthetic of this movie, oh my God, it's everything. And I'm trying in little ways to be playful in my everyday, trying to integrate some of that. And it goes without saying, that goes for any kind of aesthetic, any kind of inspiration, just the way it's so much ingrained with our self-expression and our sense of place in this world. And I think in general, there's something about the witch aesthetic that's really gotten hold on people since the 90s. I would say that there's a certain reclamation that happens for women in particular, embracing a witchly type of aesthetic and being really enamored with stories like this, myself obviously included. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with coming into one's power and where we are in history. And that might seem like some pretty big words to describe a love of a movie and a love of a movie's aesthetic. But ultimately, when you're feeling such a kind of emotional attachment to a piece of work, fiction, art, it's usually reflective of a bigger kind of story happening, whether within your own self or within society at large. And, even the fact that they're renewing this movie, I think just really goes to show how beloved it is and how it has really captured the attention and love from a lot of people. So anyway, these are sort of like the roots of why I find stories and the bigger narrative that surrounds them very interesting, captivating, exciting. I just happen to be one of those people quite involved and interested in the archetype of the witch and how it's coming up in pop culture and media and our everyday. And I love to really immerse myself in that because it makes me feel empowered, at home, magical, and what more do we really want in this life than to feel all those things? Yeah, this movie is like the best reflection of that because it's got all the good things. In its plot in general, it touches on so many things, from grief, from trauma, from domestic violence, to family troubles, sisterhood, feminism. And I think it does it in a way that's very digestible, approachable, and yet still maintains this root of the story being quite lighthearted, even though it's dealing with some pretty actually intense subject matter at times. And, you've got this kind of play of like this really dark theme, this demon of an abusive ex-boyfriend coming back, juxtaposed with this other narrative of two sisters and their aunts, and just like the way they come together with their community. So on top of having wonderful aesthetics that are inspiring and enchanting, it also is like this narrative that really brings us through stories that basically like we all experience in some way or another. And love, of course. Love is a huge part of this story. And I remember my mom and I had filmed once, we have a makeup channel, a practical magic video, and we were talking about it. I was like, well, I guess the love thing is a little like 90s, a little bit cheesy. They want love in the end. And my mom kind of put me in my place about that one. It's like, no, what's wrong with wanting love? Nothing. Like, of course, that's fine. It doesn't have to be anti-feminist just because there's like a love narrative in it. And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm dumb. But anyway, it's got everything. It really does. I really appreciate that about the film. And anyway, it kind of is like a representation of how we can go through these things, process things, and heal through our relationships with people. And if you're a woman, with other women in your lives, that is something I try and I do have in my life, which is some very close relationships with women all around me, in my family and my friends. And this movie has been a little bit of like reminding me of the importance and the magic of having relationships like that and really fostering them. Yeah, being grateful for these relationships I have in my life. So I've been like over the past couple years just really appreciative of my female relationships. I believe I've cultivated to be lifelong friendships that make me want to be those aunts when I'm older, being the aunts to my friends' kids or being the aunts to my brother's kids if he has kids. It makes me really excited for what it will look like to be an older woman too, who has these kinds of relationships and can be kind of their best kooky self with their friends, drinking midnight margaritas, dancing. That is my goal in life, and hopefully to live in a big old house with gardens and a beautiful view. Let's hope one day. But that has been a huge thing for me and a huge thing this movie reminds me of. I also want to romanticize aging too. Like I said, I use this movie as like a fun tool to ring in my 30s, but I mean, 30s, I like to say, is still pretty young, even though as a woman, we often have that doom and gloom around age. While I'm still young-ish at this time, this movie makes me not so afraid to get old and be an older woman because the aunts are kind of this huge core of the movie and make me really excited to be that age and like just maintain my eccentric natures and even if anything go fully into them. I don't think we have that many role models for being a kind of badass old lady. I hope that changes. You see actors like Kate Winslet, for example, just really advocating for these more complex and interesting roles for older women and not making women invisible as they get older. Yeah, the aunts just, to me, are everything. They are what I aspire to be. I'm really curious, actually, how part 2 is going to be now that Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock have kind of become the elder aunts, potentially. We'll see. I'm just really excited to see what they do. Hopefully nothing too, I don't know, like what they've done with Sex and the City reboot or something, you know? Also in general, I've talked on this channel recently about like taking a break from the 9-to-5 grind these past few months. And I feel like this movie kind of represents an idealized and hopeful version of what that could kind of look like for people. And by that, I just mean like a bit more time for this slower way of life the movie to me shows. You know, living in this small town. I think of the aunts by their breakfast displays and lunches, drinking wine. And I think there's like a sensuousness to this movie and I don't know how else to say it, but like this sumptuous sort of representation of almost like cottagecore vibes and what cottagecore kind of became for people on TikTok. Just this general looking for a slower way of life. And that goes along with the aesthetic of this like small town and living by the water. And I think we can all find little versions of that in our everyday, whether it is just as simple as in your morning, taking a little bit more time to have your cup of coffee, finding ways to have decadence in our everyday lives and just enjoy the senses. I find witches and witch like narratives in general and like this image of the witch often ties in with this expression of female sensuality in the like sexual sense. Sure, there's that like liberty and that image of the naked witch on the broom, this painting in particular, I think of. But more than that, it is like this living really in one's body. It's a very kind of embodying role, really, the witch. Like I think of the movie The Witch and the devil asking her, like, do you want to live deliciously? That's something I like to explore in my everyday and like not deny myself the everyday pleasures of life, whether it's dessert, glass of wine, good food, good company, gorgeous views, putting oneself in the way of seeing gorgeous views. And I've been trying to, the past few years of my life, just get out in nature more. It doesn't have to be like always a big trip or anything. It can be as simple as like really appreciating the nature around you. a lot easier here in Toronto in the summer than in the winter. But just really being attentive to the beauty around me on the everyday. I live on a pretty ugly street in Toronto. Probably one of the ugliest streets in some ways. I mean, like, especially in winter. It's very industrial. It's very hodgepodge. My building itself from the outside is very strange. It used to be a strip mall and now it's like converted loft. So it's a bit of an odd neighborhood. And I'll admit, pretty dang ugly in the winter, but at least in the summer, I like to appreciate what I see, like the plants growing. I have this little old lady who lives like a few doors down, and though her house may not be beautiful, she has this garden she tends to with such meticulous care, and she'll be like outside that garden all day checking on things. One time she showed me this surveillance footage. She doesn't even speak English, but we like communicated as best we could. But somebody stealing one of her flowers, and it was like trying to find the flower thief with this little old lady who didn't even speak English. Anyway, I pass her garden every day when I walk my dog. It's this tiny little plot, but it is so freaking beautiful. She puts so much love and care into it. And yeah, just little things like that. Even my dog, sometimes he's a really slow walker. He'll just stand there and just like sniff the air, and it's like, you want to move or what? Or are we just stand in here forever? So I use that as best I can when I can as an opportunity to slow down with him. And recently, when I did that, we're just standing on this corner forever. He's like just sniffing the air. And then I look and I see these raspberries growing, and they're growing through like the schoolyard fence in the summer. Nobody's attending to them. You actually have to kind of hop the fence weirdly if you wanted to get in this part. It's all overgrown garden, all kinds of just like weeds and stuff. And so anyway, my dog, Toast, just by his slowing down and me being attentive, pointed me to these wild raspberries growing that nobody was eating. So me and my partner plucked these, or harvested these wild raspberries several times throughout the summer. And what a beautiful treat just to get from slowing down and paying attention and being like very in the moment and finding these opportunities to be in your body and appreciating your surroundings. And it may seem like a big thing to say, oh, practical magic has like made me do all these things, but it is just one kind of piece in my journey in general, but a big piece of like just representing this way of life that I'm trying to find for myself as best I can, living in a busy city in Toronto, trying to make rent, when life sometimes doesn't feel very magical at all, when it can feel really the opposite, when this life is feeling sometimes very overwhelming and disheartening. You have to find these things, whatever it is, these ways you find little bits of magic in your everyday. I've said this many times and I'll say it many times again, but we all have to find that sometimes and somehow, right? In this movie, there's also a conversation that happens between Sally and the detective that's always stood with me. It was about this idea of magic in general, and she was talking about, because he's a detective, police officer, whatever, he has this star, a badge that, represents his power. She's like explaining how the badge, it's not the thing that actually can stop criminals in its tracks. It's like what it represents. She basically says how it's really magic is kind of in the symbolism and the power you give to things. I think that that's just really in line with what I'm saying about how you can romanticize your life through whatever means, and that you can give magic and power to these things that you use, whether it is as simple as, what you wear. In fact, actually clothing and makeup is a really interesting expression of that, because it does give off this energy, and whether it's how it transforms how we feel through confidence or something, it presents something else to the outside world, and it can be this tool for how we create power, personal power within our lives. I thought that kind of was an interesting parallel of just like the conversation I wanted to discuss today. And of course, I think there's always this sort of power in anything you believe it. Like, even when you look at studies of like placebo effects, it's like, even if something is quote unquote a placebo, but it's changed the way one's thought and made something for the better, how is that ever a bad thing? You know, as long as something's never harming or hurting anyone else, our belief systems can be this tool through which we actually feel changes in our life. And just this general, like, everyday magic. I mean, the movie's called Practical Magic. It's really about everyday magic, whether it is the magic of our relationships or the magic of the symbols and surroundings we have and what we give power to. I just kind of thought of something. It's almost like Jillian and her abusive relationship was like giving power to him until they kind of broke the curse. Anyway, now I'm on a bit of a tangent of like the actual movie and the plot, but just a little thought I suddenly had. This begs the question, what kinds of things are you guys finding in your everyday lives you're kind of helping give you personal power? There's so many things that could be, right? From your wardrobe and your makeup, that's a huge thing for me, and aesthetics and stuff, but maybe it's in what you're doing. Maybe you're knitting, maybe you're cooking, maybe you're riding your bike every day. All these things make little differences in our lives to bring ourselves some more peace and some more inspiration. I've been really enjoying learning pole fitness, and I'm going to do a get ready with me talking a little bit more about that, but it's been a really fun kind of way to express my femininity and also get healthier and stronger. And yeah, I definitely want to talk about that some more in another video. Anyway, I'm going to pop off camera and I'm going to do my lashes and return to do the lips and give any final thoughts. I'll be right back. I'm liking this eye look. It's just very simple, just very classic eyeshadow look, and I'm here for that today. I'm gonna finish this off with like a everyday autumn lip. I'll try my best to talk as I do the lip, but I may have to pause a little bit. But yeah, I sometimes have this feeling like it can feel a little childish to put so much love into a movie and so much of my almost identity into movies in general or whatever, but also, why does childish have to be a bad thing? We lose a lot of our childish nature just by virtue of the world we live in, and I don't think it's very natural. Many people look back on childhood with such nostalgia. It's because we lose something when we get older. And there's nothing wrong with trying to reclaim a little bit of that. I've been like this since I was a kid. Just like I will obsess over a movie or something, and it will become part of my identity. I used to love getting into costume, and it just makes sense that I've, in my elder years, just kind of been trying to find that again. And makeup definitely plays a huge role in that. Yeah, I encourage anybody who's kind of ever at a point where they're feeling a little bit even lost with where they are in life to return to the things that made them as a child happy and revisit that in some way or another. To sum it all up, like, I just have really enjoyed having this movie in my life, and it gives me endless comfort. Even when I just like look up photos of it or just like see come up on my social media, like the house that everyone wants, the Practical Magic house, you know, it just kind of lifts my heart and just makes me feel a bit less heavy, a little bit more myself. And Practical Magic, among a lot of other movies and books and art and music, of course. But I just really wanted to touch on this one in particular. And I think a lot of people love this movie for a reason. Anyway, I want to try and capture some of that energy in my everyday life. And yeah, aesthetic. I'll try and do a wide angle shot and show you my outfit that I basically have been living in all summer. But long hair, long skirts, can't go wrong. So comfortable too. Oh my God. But I haven't tried a wide angle yet. We'll see how it goes. Basically just like an oversized kind of white shirt, which I find goes best when I'm wearing the white kids. And Yeah, that's basically my practical magic outfit. And it's really been like reiterations of this long skirt, tank, maybe something I throw over it. Just find it so comfortable and just easy to have an outfit that I feel like looks pretty stylish, but really easy to throw together. So yeah, that's really it for today. Here's Toasty. Here's where he's normally napping when I'm calling him over. Toasty, come here. Hello. Look at this guy. You guys get a little peek into my house, which I wish was more practical magic coded. I just don't currently have the resources to just like change everything up, and I'm renting. I don't know how much I want to really invest in really bettering this place. And yeah, it's kind of hard when you have a partner who has a different sense of style than you and maybe doesn't want to live in a witchy house. So yeah, anyway, that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching till the end. I think we'll go on a little W after this. Slow down a little bit, have a glass of wine later tonight, read a book. Definitely comment down below any of your thoughts on this discussion, anything you guys have used to just like romanticize your everyday life. And until next time, may you find yourselves a little bit of magic in the meantime, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, witches.